And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Echo down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is getting ready to launch more Starlink V2 mini satellites. This one in the unique 10-1 mission. We'll talk about what that means in just a moment. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for this evening's launch coverage, but as always, I am not alone. I am joined by, if you just watch The Flame Trench, you will recognize this voice. Alex, how's it going?
Yeah, from live stream to live stream, I'm not stopping here.
Yeah, we just bounce him around.
Yeah.
And then also joining us from the field, no, not the field that's driving the car, the field down at the Cape right now, Max, how's it going?
Yeah, the action never stops here, does it? Well, good evening, everybody, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you're watching from. And welcome back to Business as Usual with the first Group 10 Starlink mission from Slick 40.
Yes, this is indeed the first Starlink Group 10 mission, which, Alex, if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of turn that over to you to explain what that means, because other than the fact that it's not your ordinary Starlink.
Yeah, I'm mostly sure that a lot of people are asking, like, what is Group 10? And I gotta say, I'm asking the same. Like, I'm wondering just exactly that. What is Group 10? I have no idea. And what we do know, though, is that there's the orbit that is being targeted for today will be 53-degree inclination orbit. So this is pretty much what they have been doing from Vandenberg, for example. For the Starlink missions that launched from there, they launched to 53 degrees. Because the ones that we had seen so far for Group 6, they were launching to 43-degree inclination, not 53. Except last week, earlier in the week, sorry, because that was actually less than 3 days ago, we had a Starlink launch from the Cape from this very same launch pad. That was 8.5, Starlink Group 8.5, and that one was launching direct-to-cell satellites, right? And that was launching also to the northeast, just like today, and it was also targeting 53-degree inclination, but that is because the direct-to-cell, there you go, that's the trajectory for today. The direct-to-cell satellites are being launched into a 53-degree inclination orbit. Today, we don't know what type of satellites they're carrying, but good chances are that it is Starlink V2 minis, because SpaceX never said that they were carrying direct-to-cell satellites, which means that, whatever they're carrying, they're not direct-to-cell, right? That's sort of the point. Also, we know the number of satellites. It is 22 satellites going on board on this mission. By the way, I'm just seeing the ticker. It says direct-to-cell satellites. That needs to be changed. Because we don't really have confirmation that it is, all of them are direct-to-cell satellites, or at least I don't recall any confirmation from SpaceX about that. But yeah, the thing is, it is most likely that these are just, V2 mini satellites, and the reason for this to be a new group number, I really don't have any idea, because 53-degree inclination with Starlink V2 mini satellites, that essentially is Group 7 missions. And at one point, they had plans to launch Group 7 missions from the Cape. I just don't know what else is different to have a whole new group. And spoiler alert, next week, there's Group 9-1 out from Vandenberg. So your guess is as good as mine on what it might mean.
That's not confusing. Also not confusing the fact that SpaceX likes to change the launch times on us, and in fact,
Yeah,
they have just done so. You'll notice the clock in the top left has now changed. As
just
you
a
can see
little
there
bit.
on SpaceX's website, they are now targeting a liftoff of 8:28 p.m. Eastern Time, 28 minutes later than the original T0 that they had planned. Now, in terms of the weather out there, I know that the official forecast was, I believe, about 60% go, Max. How is it looking and feeling out there? Because this is one of the clearest shots we've had in a long time without heat haze at pad 40 there.
Yeah, 60% seems kind of low for the weather that we're seeing right now. We're seeing moderate cloud cover all around us at, I guess, medium altitudes. Actually, to my, I guess that would be southwest. I can actually see a pretty good annual cloud building, but that's probably the better part of like 40 or 50 miles away, so it's not really a primary concern for tonight, especially with where the wind's blowing. But yeah, we don't normally get views this clear and crisp of Slick 40 from the KSC press site, which is where we are now, simply because a lot of the times, especially at this time of year and throughout the summer, the atmosphere does not like to play nice, especially with heat and humidity, and we get a lot of haze usually. But it is feeling actually pretty. It's not, not humid for us is very humid for many other people. So I guess anything under 80% is not that humid, and that's about what it feels like right now. But with that new T0 time, that is about, I want to say, 12 or 13 minutes after sunset. So we might be into prime jellyfish territory at that time.
Oh, you tease us, Max. You tease us. We'll have to see. A reminder here, if you have any questions, you can tag us at NASA Spaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can. And one question we have yet to answer is, how nice is this booster? In other words, Alex, what booster do we have flying tonight?
Yeah, we obviously dealt like the elephant on the room for today, which is what Group 10 means and everything. But of course, there's a rocket that supports this mission. This is Falcon 9, of course. And the first stage, B1069, is flying for a 16th time on this flight. I completely forgot to write on my own end the flight history, but I have it on another end. So I can tell you it launched CRS-24, Starlink 423, Hotbird 13F, OneWeb 15, Starlink 5.3, SES-18 and SES-19, Starlink 5.6, 5.12, 6.9, 619, 628, 636, 639, 647, and most recently, 657. So there you go. That's the rundown of all the 15 launches that this booster has made so far. And you can see it all on Next Spaceflight.
I was about to say, it's a pretty snazzy website there. Check
Yeah.
out. So you can see all the latest launches and all of the history of the boosters and vehicles and even Starship stuff. So yeah, I also forgot that B1069 flew the 6-9 mission. Just pointing that out too.
It was totally a coincidence. It was not planned at all. No.
No, definitely not. Oh boy. Max, since you're the only one here that's a member of the fan club, Mockspace wants to know, Stubby nozzle, yay or nay?
In general, or for tonight's mission? Because
I think
I
they
could
mean for
go on for a
tonight's
little bit.
mission.
Well, unfortunately for the upcoming and as far as we can see for the foreseeable future for Starlink missions, the Stubby nozzle is not viable simply because of the performance needed on the upper stage to get I don't want to call them fat, but they are definitely 22 plus Starlink V2 minis, especially with the direct-to-cell satellites. That is a chunky payload. So they need all of the performance they can get out of that second stage. So unfortunately, the Stubby nozzle is not on the second stage tonight, but maybe at some point in the future it will. But I guess that is up to SpaceX to tell us or not.
I think the satellites prefer the term thick with 3 C's.
Stealing my thunder, eh, Sawyer?
You know it. Well, let's hope there's no thunder. We don't want thunder because that's usually not good for launch.
That's a very
Yeah,
good point. Yes,
please.
please.
No thunder. I do like these views though. They are really clear. Today it looks like there's really great visibility.
Yeah, we
So
get
hoping
maybe a handful of days this clear probably every 2 to 3 months, and I guess we got super lucky tonight. We actually had one of these a Starlink mission not too long ago, probably within the neighborhood of probably 2 to 4 weeks ago, had views about this clear, but that went into the night, so we couldn't fully appreciate just how clear it was because as I guess the temperature goes down, the haze tends to picks up down here, especially at night. So I guess we are just in the sweet spot right now for the atmosphere to play nice with us.
And how sweet it is. Let's take some questions here. Here's a question from Demian, and I'll put this one to you, Alex. What happened with the Falcon 9 landings in the Bahamas?
Yeah, that is a great question. We really don't know, right? Because they were attempting to do those with Group 7 and certain Group 8 missions. For example, they launched Group 8, 5 a few days ago. That was actually the last launch from this launch pad. And we don't really know why it took the northbound trajectory. They had two options, the one landing in the Bahamas, and then they had another option going north. And they took the north option, and for this mission, Group 10-1, we don't even know if they really had an option to land in Bahamas, but for whatever reason, they're also choosing to go north instead of south. And I guess, that sort of, it's like another thing to mention here that this last launch 8.5, which we unfortunately we were very busy with the Starship, so we didn't stream that. But if we had, I will have mentioned that was the first northbound trajectory for a Starlink launch at the Cape since 2022, essentially December 2022, on the Starlink Group 4-37 mission. It was the last Group 4 mission launched, and that was north. Right after that, the very next mission from the Cape, that was Starlink Group 5-1, and that was the first one to have that sort of southbound trajectory, and also to support Starlink Generation 2. So yeah, it was quite a surprise to finally get another northbound trajectory for Starlink from the Cape. And today, as we've already overviewed before, it's also going to be another northbound trajectory. We don't really know what else they have in mind when choosing these trajectories. I'm mostly sure that it probably has to do with their performance budget for Falcon 9. And I don't really know about about what's the status on the Falcon 9 landings in the Bahamas, because you also have to take into account things like the drone ship turnarounds and everything. Because obviously the drone ship needs to get there to the middle of the Bahamas and then come back, and then it needs to do all the return to the port and everything. It's quite complicated, so to speak, because it's just we recently saw that super fast turnaround time for a Shortfall Of Gravitas, where it was just like 3.5 days, which was crazy. And that was probably down to where it was landing, and maybe in the middle of the Bahamas just doesn't work for them, for example, because you have to go around the islands and everything. That probably adds more to the trajectory, actually. We'll see if they actually say anything about this decision. Maybe not, but here's hoping.
Here's definitely hoping they will, because I have a feeling a lot of us will be buying plane tickets down to the Bahamas when that does happen. Already, we've been getting some crazy generous support continuing over from the Flame Trench into our launch coverage here. Chris P. 1341 gifting 50 Red Team memberships. Holy smokes. Thank you so much for doing that. It really genuinely means a lot. If you did get one of those gifted memberships, definitely make sure you give Chris a thanks. And yeah, check out some of the awesome perks that come along with being a member here on the YouTube. And some other people that are getting even more perks include Lee Rupert. Thank you for upgrading to Launch Director. That is one of the top tiers that we have here at NSF. And in addition to all the amazing perks that already come with Capcom, like Discord and all the photos and everything else, you also get your name at the end of all of our Flame Trench and NSF Live shows. So thank you for that. And also BMAT becoming a launch director member as well. My God, the generosity from everyone this week has been absolutely insane. So thank you. Thank you. And we genuinely appreciate everyone here. Thargor, thank you as well for becoming a Padrat member. And then Rian, hopefully pronouncing that right, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Musical Wolves, a name that we see here quite often, saying new group number because confuses media button pressed. I think that's pretty true. Also,
Valid.
musical.
They always press that button like many times.
Yeah, it's like they press it in their sleep sometimes. And then also adding Starlinks, Starliner, Starship, and now more Starlinks. It's for sure
yeah.
a Star Week. We need not your ordinary Starlink merch. Trying to think what that would look like. Would it be like a little Starlink satellite waving or something? I don't know. We'd have to come up with that.
Perhaps, yeah.
And then we've got Pat O getting a couple items from the shop, shop.nasaspaceflight.com, saying hearts. Well, hearts back at you, Pat O. Thank you very much. And enjoy
Hello.
your gear from the shop. Yes. Ooh, getting some of the team merch as well, which you may notice some of the team now has merch that says NSF crew on it. So keep an eye out for us wearing the fancy stuff now. El Mary asking, what was your favorite moment from yesterday? Max, I'm guessing you got to see the craziness that was Starship. What was your favorite moment?
Geech. The last 3 or 4 days have all pretty much just been a blur, and I've just been
True.
stationary here at the Cape. I had to hold the fort down while everyone else was in Starbase, pretty much. But I was fortunate enough to be at the Goes You media event yesterday morning, where myself and a handful of other members of the media were getting ready to see the Goes You satellite in the clean room just before NCAP, before it launches, hopefully on the 25th of this month on Falcon Heavy. We were in the waiting room, waiting to go see it in the clean room, and we saw the entire thing from, I think, myself and a couple of other media members' phones in there, and we were watching live, trying to not scream. We were squealing. We were just punching the air. We were so excited. Launch, it was spectacular as always, but launch isn't necessarily the biggest story point right now with Starship flying, especially with V1. It was a little bit alarming to see them losing one Raptor on the way up just after liftoff, but Booster has the engine out capability to lose 3, so 1 wasn't a huge deal. But of course, I think the moment that everyone was most anticipating, then perhaps the potential Booster soft landing, which it did, spoiler alert, was, of course, the reentry of Ship 29. And it was such a roller coaster seeing the plasma faintly begin to show up on the bottom of the ship at the base of the heat shield, and then of course begin to encapsulate the entire ship. And it was looking really, really good. And then we, of course, saw the burn through of one of the aft flaps start to show on camera, and we all began to we got very nervous. But it's safe to say we almost lost our minds when the booster completed its soft touchdown in the Gulf. We just about lost our minds when Ship 29 fired up its sea level Raptors and did the successful flip maneuver into the water and with a soft landing. It was one of those mornings where you will have those memories ingrained into your brain for a very long time to come. Especially considering where we were watching from. So, good golly, it was just all of it, honestly, beyond all of it.
Yeah.
It was mind blowing.
For me, it was the little flap that could. The fact that it hung in there as long as it did, and then all of a sudden, it's like, all right, we're not going to see it move at all for landing. It was a good go, and then it just folds out, and then it does the flip and burn, and it's just like,
That was
wait,
Just the fact
what?
that ship had full
Yeah.
control authority, even though 2 or more of the flaps had complete burn throughs, is still gobsmacking to me. It's just like that to me more than anything is the fact that sticks out. Is that ship still had control authority despite multiple burn-throughs on the flaps.
Yeah, that was mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was so cool, and not only that, that we could through the cracked glass and all of the soot and everything, see it too. Let's see here. Here's a good question, Alex, from Patrick. We're getting some really good questions tonight. They're saying, what's the difference of launching northeast versus southeast?
Well, I mean, the difference is essentially down to, one of the things of launching southeast, the problem with that is that, if you're landing next to Bahamas, for example, you kind of have to do this little dog leg around. So that sometimes lowers the performance of Falcon 9. But, there's also the difference in the recovery weather as well, where normally in the south tends to be a little bit better, whereas on the north, you have the northern Atlantic sometimes being a little bit angry, as Jack will say, ocean angy. But yeah, the whole thing is just down to what they need in terms of the performance of Falcon 9, the recovery weather. It's been a long time though that we haven't really seen northbound trajectories, and so it's probably down to something else that we're not aware of, right? And that we're probably not entirely, we don't really know entirely. And so perhaps that's something that only SpaceX themselves can really answer for. And so, the difference, obviously, on the northeast versus southeast, as just mentioned, the mission side of things. Of course, the difference is also that you're going north on the northeast trajectory, and the southeast trajectory you're going south. You can still reach the same inclination going either way. It's just a matter of essentially what way you want to go. And if you want to go northeast, you just hug the coast of the United States, just like today's mission will do. And if you go southeast, well, you kind of have to avoid the Bahamas or land right in the middle of them if you really want to try these sort of inclinations.
Right, and you see it quite often, especially with ISS launches. I mean, just a couple days ago, for that matter, with Starliner, the ISS is at an orbital inclination of 51.6 degrees, and those are the ones that go to the northeast. These are 53.1 degrees, so not that far off. Also, kind of that launching to the northeast, hugging the coast type trajectory, at least for the Group 8 and apparently now Group 10 missions here from Florida. Uh, we've got John Depker saying a little off topic here, but since most or all Tower 2 segments are at Starbase, the rest of the fiddly bits are on the way. I like that. When can we expect parts for an LR11350 to start showing up?
Yeah, that is interesting. I really don't know when that might happen, to be fair. Um, the whole crane, we saw the one at 39A that built the one the Starship Tower at 39A, then went and built that tower that you can see there. That crew tower was also built by an 350, and hopefully we get to see those coming in. Maybe the start of the tower, like the base and the first few sections, might be something that the LR 11,000 can stack on its own out there at Starbase, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what else does. Because for those who don't know, again, we just recently had two of the tower segments, the carriage system and chopsticks, load up onto a barge at the turn basin there at the Kennedy Space Center and head off on their way to the port of Brownsville to make their way to join the other parts down in Texas that were built at Roberts Road over at the Cape. So, Max, as someone who's been doing the flyovers for all of these parts and seeing the tower sections go up and now ship out, what do we think is next for Roberts Road with all that giant open area that they were using to build this stuff? Do you think there's a future for that?
Oh, absolutely. And as we've covered in previous flyovers, there are current plans in place to expand the Robertsville facility for future Starship operations here at the Cape. I think what's next is beyond the facilities that need to be expanded right now for Falcon and potentially Dragon operations. They need to start clearing land for the Starship facilities, and also at the same time, they may be starting to construct the core segments for the second tower here that will be built somewhere at the Kennedy Space Center or the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Don't know exactly when that is going to start yet, but you can bet your sweet Bippy that we are going to be in a helicopter watching when that does happen. But there is plenty of future left for Roberts Road.
Also, you never know that I'm the oldest of the three people here, as he's the one saying, "You bet your sweet Bippy," going back to Laugh-In days here. But yeah, it's been interesting to follow from the air, especially with all of the Cape stuff, and even just driving by it. It'll be interesting to see that active again and see whether they get the environmental approvals and everything they need for either 37B or Slick 50, as they've proposed and is currently available to read some of those proposals online. RC
Yeah.
Horseman, thank you for gifting 10 Red Team memberships. John Depker, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Gareth Cole, thank you for upgrading to Capcom. Again, Capcom and above gets access to the member Discord, including the NSF Flame Trench pre and post show. And then Snot Garden, more snot coming in here, saying thank you for the all-star coverage. Pun token awarded.
Yeah, there you go. Pun of the day, I guess. It's really the pun of the week, right? Because it's been a very starry kind of week with all stars.
Seriously. And it sounded like you were about to say something before I started going through all of those. I apologize.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Just making sure. Let's see here. Um, Here's one from Mr. Dollar saying, when do you think SpaceX will retire Falcon or Starship, which we know a while ago that was announced? After the crazy successful flight yesterday, Alex, what do you think?
Well, it's probably gonna take a while. It's probably not gonna be that straightforward. Because Starship, first of all, it needs to reach cadence. Just because it launches once or twice every now and then, it doesn't mean that it really can completely replace Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is currently at a really incredible cadence, and so um and so the thing is, it really comes down to the cadence, to how fast can SpaceX really ramp up the cadence and try to get to um just outpace Falcon 9. If you think about what capacity can Starship launch into orbit, it is approximately about twice in terms of the terabytes per second. If you measure that in that sense, right? So you probably need about half of the current Falcon 9 cadence to be able to match the capacity that you're launching for Starlink. But then also at the same time, Starship is going to be busy, doing all other stuff like HLS and doing all of the refueling trips and things like that. So it's not going to be that one-to-one comparison where it's like, oh, you just need to make half of the cadence and that'll match the amount of capacity of a Starlink capacity that you can put into orbit. It's probably going to be more than half. And my guess, it's probably going to be something along the lines of like 75% of the current cadence of Falcon 9. So once Starship gets to the point, like my guess is, once Starship gets to the point of like 50 to 70 launches per year, that's going to be potentially when it'll be able to completely replace Falcon 9 without issues. Because what you wouldn't want to have is, oh, well, Starship is launching, so let's completely replace all of these hundreds of Falcon 9 launches by just 5 Starship launches. That doesn't make sense economically, and really, it's not. It's it's not really a good move economically if you have a company that is putting out that output, right, and that capacity into orbit, and now completely flatline that progress. It just wouldn't make sense at all.
Exactly. And talking about cadence, I mean, just take a look at Fleet Cam here right now. We've got a booster already up right there still. It seems like there's not a moment where there isn't a booster at this rate in port. You've got the drone ship there. You can see one of the capsule recovery ships. Can't read the name of which one from here, but it's a busy time for the SpaceX fleet out there. And as you mentioned, yeah, it doesn't make sense to kind of
Yeah.
stop with Falcon 9 launches when you are at such a good cadence and able to turn it around that quickly that many times.
Yeah,
It's
and also like speaking of the cadence, today, for example, was the so today, if they launch on time, if they stick to this 8:28 p.m. Eastern launch time, then that will mean this will be the second fastest turnaround time from this launch pad. So this is just gonna be quite. It's not gonna be a record, obviously, but it keeps the cadence down. Well, the opposite. The cadence up and the turnaround times low. And the whole point is that whenever you do a record turnaround time, it's not just a fluke, right? Where it's just like one single time you do that, and then everything else is way beyond, below that record. And so they're keeping it up essentially. It's not something that, I don't know.
and that record,
Yeah.
I believe, is just a little bit over 3 days, or the this turnaround is just a little over 3 days, right?
So for the pad, it's about under 3 days. For the booster, I believe. See, the problem is with the Starship, I haven't been able to actually put together all the numbers. But the booster, I believe, is about 31 days, 32 days. Excuse me. I'm trying to look. Yeah, 31 and something more. So essentially one month, because it launched last time. It was May 6th of this year. So it was essentially 31 days ago. Yeah, it was. It was really a turnaround time. Again, the same thing happens with the Falcon 9 boosters, right? I mentioned this multiple times, where the record is 21 days. That was really on May 2022. That was never broken again since then. But that was at a time where the average turnaround time was like 60 days for boosters. Now it's 30. Right? Like that's a lot of progress. They haven't broken records in terms of the shortest turnaround time, but it does have the essentially the averages have been coming down, and that is a substantial, monumental progress.
Yeah. In terms of progress, we are working on the progress of getting the camera to behave and the internet at the press site there. So hang tight. We also have our fleet cam view here. We'll do our best to get that up for launch. So make sure. Why don't you get up and stretch like the picture did for a bit? Right there, you go. A little exercise. Let's see here. Here's a really good question as well from Scott Dunn. We're looking at Fleet Cam here and seeing all of the drone ship landings and everything. This one, again, landing on a Shortfall of Gravitas. We've got the crazy turnaround times between all of these. So, what happened to all the return to launch sites that were talked about for this year? Because I believe the next one only on the schedule, according to Next Spaceflight, one of the great apps, is Goes You.
Yeah, we also don't really know what happened with those, but also you got to think about how that affects the amount of satellites that can launch. They seem to have had that sort of like a backup option to what they're doing right now. At the start of the year, we were in a situation where turning drone ships around was very complicated. Like quickly turning them around was complicated. It was not really a thing. And the sort of the average turnaround time of the booster was somewhere around 7 to 8 days. They have accomplished a turnaround time of a shortfall of gravitas of essentially 3.5 days. Like, that is amazing, because the amount of speed that thing needs to go, it needs to be tugged out there to the landing site. It's crazy. It's just mind blowing that how they have, in 6 months essentially, how they have come from the shortest turnaround time of a drone ship was around just 6-7 days to now being half of that. And so if you think about it, of course, if they were not able to do that, you could think, well, they could do RTLS, and then it's all driven by the launch pad, which they already demonstrated that they can turn this launch pad in particular. They demonstrated at the before the start of the year that they could turn them around essentially under 4 days. Now they have even gone under 3 days, today included, and so it's like, if they can turn the boosters, the drone ships around at the same pace as the launch pads, they don't really need to do RTLS, and they can keep up with that capacity that I was saying before, launching 20 to 23 satellites into orbit every time, instead of perhaps 15 to 16. Which, if you think about it, after maybe 2 or 3 launches, you're already offsetting another RTLS launch of those, right? So yeah, it's important to take this in context.
That's a good way to put it, is to take it in context here.
On how things were in, at that time when they were proposing potential RTLS, with now it's like things have changed. They took another different approach, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the approach seems to be working if they're able to do the turnaround as quick as they are.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to combine 2 questions here into one from TerraSpace, because they asked us with one of their membership renewal messages as well. They were saying, could Falcon 9 fit on a mini OLM, and would that be a practical idea? And the other idea was, what about launching out on a barge as opposed to launching it from the Cape? I guess maybe to help pick up cadence. And my question for that would then also have to be, what would be the deal in terms of propellants? Where do you store those and where do you load those?
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts?
don't really think they really need a mini OLM of sorts. I think they're already good for the whole thing. But yeah, don't really think they really need a mini OLM or anything like that. I think the current setup that they have already works very well for them.
Yeah, they've got it pretty much down to a science, it seems like, at this point here.
Yeah.
Let's see, and that kind of goes along with this question here from Marvin's mate. Uh, they're asking, will SpaceX still develop Falcon 9 to the point of reflying the same booster in a single day, or will Starship supersede it before they get to that point? Because the original goal, as we've heard with Starship also, for Falcon 9 was to be able to turn around, and then launch again the same day, which we've seen happen just from different launch pads. We've seen it with different boosters. I don't know. Would they continue to keep refining Falcon 9 to be able to
Yeah.
do that?
I don't really think they could really do that. Turning Falcon 9 around, it's complicated. It uses RP1, right? And they need to inspect those engines, clean them out from the suit and things like that. After that, it's really not that much, but it still takes a few days. And then you kind of have to process it as well for launch. It's not just the refurbishment, but also, processing it for launch, attach a second stage, payload with fairing and everything. So, but the goal of a Starship eventually is to, it lands and then, have it ready to launch even before you can order a taco, right? It's like, it's just going to be very quickly launching again and just going ahead with it. And so that is sort of the goal for a Starship. Whether they achieve that or not, that's a whole different thing. But if you want to have a rocket that is fully reusable and fast reusable or quickly reusable, look at Starship, because Falcon 9 is not that kind of rocket. Again, it's not meant to be. But it gave them enough experience to get to that point with Starship. So we'll see.
Exactly. And in terms of actually being able to get multiple launches off like that in a day, you need to not have as many delays. Unfortunately, I say that because we do have another one to announce. At this point, there is a new updated T0 time. We are now targeting 9:02 p.m. Eastern Time per SpaceX's website for this particular Starlink 10-1 launch. So once again, we reset the countdown clock to about T-minus 1 hour and 12 minutes. And in case you're wondering, the launch window for this one continues until 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time. If needed, there are additional opportunities also available starting tomorrow at 7:47 p.m. So essentially 24 hours from right now if needed. Thank you, Jay, and unfortunate that we we have to mention it, but yeah. Well then, come delay or sunshine, we remain here and continue to track the launch with all of you. Uh, let's take another question here then. Uh, and kind of give a recap actually first. How about we do that? Alex, do you mind kind of giving a recap of this Starlink 10-1 mission and where it's going, where people can see it, that kind of deal?
Yeah, so just so you'll know what is going on. So we are right now 1 hour 11 minutes away from that launch. Today they are carrying 22 Starlink satellites, most likely V2 minis, because we don't really know at this point if they are actually V2 minis or whatever. They haven't really said if they are direct to cell satellites, so we can assume that they are the other type, which is V2 mini satellites. They are going to a 53-degree inclination orbit. They are going northeast. They are carrying 22 of these on booster B1069. It'll land downrange there, as you can see on a Shortfall Of Gravitas. And you know it's gonna go northeast for once. A lot of people will be very happy up in the East Coast because they'll be able to watch this potentially. Because now, if it is at the what was it again 9:02 p.m. right?
Yep, 9:02.
Lunchtime exactly. So if it is at that time, it's probably gonna be nighttime, and you know rockets are much more visible in nighttime than during daylight. So they'll probably be able to see that rocket if, of course, if they are not obstructed by clouds and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, that minor detail of the weather having to cooperate as well. Let's see here. So, I know there's people asking now with this new T0 time. Nick Nut Nerd asked earlier, will there be a jellyfish tonight? If so, I might be able to see it from North Carolina. I think as it pushes later into the window, unfortunately, the chances of a jellyfish are dropping lower and lower. So, uh, I would say it's a lot less possible, a lot less likely. So it still doesn't mean you're not going to be able to not see it, though. If you have the clear skies, absolutely take a look out there, head on outside, and see what you can see. And as always, if you do see it, tweet us some pictures or send them via DMs to our social media team on Facebook and Instagram, too. It's always cool to see what you're able to see out there.
Well, you know, the thing is what you just mentioned about the you know, as we progress into the window with the whole jellyfish effect, it'll probably not be um a jellyfish perhaps at this time because it's like 9:02 as we were mentioning. That's probably too late. We'll see. Like, right, knock on wood, it actually launches at this time and we'll figure it out. But yeah. Yeah, and you know, if it were if we were a little bit earlier as it was before, then it would have been more spectacular, and we will have seen that.
I'm sure
Excuse
I'm
me,
about to get
I'm
yelled at
kind of
by
losing
BES. That's
my
fine.
voice already because it's like, you know, Starship and Starlink and everything.
Yeah. I was worried there. I was about to get yelled at by the social media team, but seems like it's okay. Again, that's Facebook and Instagram. Just mention us on X. Crispy, uh, yeah. For his sake, keep them as @mentions. They're really cool. Plus, then we can actually share them, or
Yeah.
see them, or like them, or whatever we do with them. We are again the new T0 target time of 9:02 p.m. Eastern Time. And I was seeing the people in chat who are down near Cocoa Beach saying that they are hearing thunder and some lightning. So there is definitely a storm a brewing
Ugh.
towards the southeast of the Cape, just looking at radar images and video here. We don't know for certain that that is the reason for this delay, but I think it's safe to say that that is a potential.
Yeah, I mean the whole weather, right? We were talking about how the weather today was a little bit it's been quite good weather lately, but today it's especially it was 40% probability of violation, or on the other hand 60% good chances of weather. The primary concerns for today were anvil route oof, um anvil cloud rules, excuse me, cumulus cloud rule, and surface electric field rule. I'm trying to read it off from here from the Space Force um, document about the forecast for today. And there you can see that document. It's it's not good today, but we have launched with worse weather, right? So we'll
Yes.
wait and see what's gonna happen right now. And so it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
And it's worth noting as well from the most recent updates from a weather computer that we sometimes have access to at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and Kennedy Space Center. There are parts of the area that are in a phase 1 lightning warning. So just something to keep an eye out for. In the Sidco Road area, a phase 2 lightning warning was active just a short time ago. So just things to keep in mind that they are watching potential lightning in the area. And again, where there's thunder, there's lightning.
Hmm.
So we will keep an eye and an ear out for everything going on there. And make sure Max stays safe out there too, especially with the potential if there is rain coming in. By the way, I do want to
Yeah.
point out we have that poll that's still up there in chat. And in terms of Stubby Nozzle, we'll ignore the fact that it was kind of a biased
No
wording.
Stubby Nozzle today, please. No. It's
Yeah, the wording is a little bit biased in that it says Stubby Nozzle, yes, thank the nozzle gods, or no, sad noises. And
this is for no on. Oh, there you go.
there's the weather map, yes.
That's the weather. Yeah.
The weather computer that is running at KSC. And you'll see it cycles through multiple different things, so that's how we can get the radar images. You saw that one there with all the boxes and everything. A yellow box is a phase 1 lightning warning. A red box is a phase 2 lightning warning. And anything that is that pinkish purple color involves sustained winds of greater than 18 knots. Or at least steady at 18 knots, excuse me. So we are definitely watching that. You can see there from the radars as well, the clouds rolling in, storms rolling in, but we're definitely keeping an eye on it. We got Max out there prepping the gear to survive the weather in case it does rain. I don't know if Max, we still have you on comms. I know you've been quite busy down there, but what is the weather like at the moment if we do have you?
Okay.
And it sounds like he is still busy down there, so
He,
I don't
yeah.
blame him.
He seems a little bit busy there. Yeah.
Yeah, making sure the gear stays dry as we get ready to keep
Yeah.
going here.
We really don't want that gear to get soaked or anything if it's gonna be raining and all stormy and everything, or
Right.
even worse, right? Because
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, a reminder, the window does continue until 10:10 p.m. Eastern Time. The current T0 is 9:02 p.m. Eastern, so they still have about an hour's worth of wiggle room in the window. And if not, there are attempts available tomorrow starting at 7:47 p.m. Eastern Time. So fingers crossed that there's still a potential, or as the saying goes, so you're telling me there's a chance.
yeah, I mean, there's still 60% good chances of weather today, so they're probably, don't be surprised if they sleep a little bit, not sleep, but like slip. Excuse me. English right
That's
now.
what we
It's
know you
super
need more
complicated.
of. Yes.
I need sleep. But yeah, what I'm trying to mean is that don't be surprised if they move to the right on the window and get to the end, because they're trying to get to, through a good, a window of good weather, so that they don't really damage anything on the way uphill with Falcon 9. Because
Exactly.
it would really be very bad if they were to launch another thunderstorm. We don't really want that.
No, as this isn't Soyuz, and as we've seen, going back to even Apollo 12, which lifted off, was struck by lightning and knocked out a whole bunch of power to the spacecraft, leading to the famous SCE to aux moment, which we have in our intro-outro video. So after that, the U.S. kind of learned, yeah, let's not risk launching when there's lightning like that to protect the electronics and everything here. So as we approach T-minus 1 hour to the current T0, as we get our gear prepped just in case it does rain, which it seems like there's a chance, we are going to switch over to NSF-FM, our go-to radio station here. As
That's my favorite station.
I love it too. It's got the
Apart
greatest...
from the International Space Station, but...
It has the greatest copyright-free tunes you could imagine here. So, as we have the Phase 1 lightning warning called over KSC, we'll let Max head inside to safety for a bit, and we will be back as soon as we have an update on a new T0, and once they begin fueling. So, we will see you all at T-minus 40 minutes. This is SR the DJ, and you're listening to NSF FM. You may have noticed that the clock in the top left of the screen has changed once again. And you would be right. We have a new T0 from SpaceX. They are now targeting 9:32 p.m. Eastern Time. Once again, the window closes at 10:10 p.m. Eastern. As you've been seeing on the left side of your screen, you've probably noticed that there are some Phase 1 lightning warnings and concerning weather in the area. We're getting reports of rain in Titusville, and the Kennedy Space Center LC-39 press site has been placed under a Phase 1 lightning warning per the loudspeakers there. We are going to continue to watch the countdown, though, and they have not called it off yet. Just updated the T0 to 9:32 p.m. Eastern Time. As mentioned, we will resume commentary in full once we have prop load. But for now, back to your music. I've been your DJ, SR, here on NSF FM. There, DJ is back, and unfortunately, to be the bearer of bad news, you see in the top left, the T0 has pushed again. We are now looking at a T0 of 9:57 p.m. Eastern Time. A reminder, the window closes at 10 p.m. Eastern, and there are still attempts tomorrow. So stick with us. We're going to stick it out until we get the official word of whether they go for fuel or not. In the meantime, I'm going to dedicate this track to a very special Jack Beyer out on the road. This is copyright-free track number 7. are back. And also quite important, the clock continuing to count down as you see. We now have official confirmation that SpaceX has confirmed we are under 35 minutes away until tonight's Falcon 9 launch. Prop load is underway and weather conditions have improved for liftoff. For those just rejoining, I am Sawyer Rosenstein, your host for this evening's stream, and I am of course not alone, joined by Alex. Alex, you still with us?
I'm still here. You know, trying to see if this rocket can finally, fly free as a bird, essentially. Because man, it's been on the ground for a little bit, and we are 31 minutes away from that liftoff time. SpaceX confirming that the weather has improved for liftoff. So just, hopefully we get that liftoff.
That is the plan, and out in the field is Max. Max, how's it going, and how's the weather looking now?
Yeah, these getting into late night Starlinks are making us earn our paycheck tonight. That's for sure. Well, the weather is looking better now. Earlier, I was looking to my west, and there looked to be a pretty nasty cell beginning to spool up, and the radar seemed to confirm that as it was coming this way. There was a more severe and more steadily built one to the south of us around the Cocoa Beach area that was in a Phase 2 lightning warning for the southernmost point of the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Port Canaveral. But that seems to have all been lifted. The last criteria that was being analyzed and looked at was the 18-knot steady state winds. I think that should be either green or close to being lifted now. So fingers crossed for a liftoff in just about 30 minutes on my mark.
Who's Mark?
Oh, Jesus.
Anyway, so as we hit under the T-minus 30-minute and counting point here, this is, for those just joining, Starlink 10-1 with 22 V2 mini satellites. Alex, can you kind of go into a little bit about what we do and probably more importantly what we don't know about this first Group 10 flight?
Yeah. It is a really rare kind of thing when we start another new group, I guess, because sometimes we do know things, but other times we don't. And on this one, we do know at least that it's going to a 53-degree inclination orbit. We know that there's going to be 22 Starlink satellites on board. There's not been confirmation either it's direct to cell or V2 mini, but we suppose it is direct. It's V2 mini because when it is direct to cell, they mention it is direct to cell, and when it is not, then they just say it is not. It's just generic 22 Starlink satellites or something like that. And so we assume it is V2 mini because they use that sort of wording, generic wording of 22 Starlink satellites. Where it is going, again, 53-degree inclination. That is what we had seen from Vandenberg for Group 7 missions. And it is the same one that is also being used for Group 8 missions with direct-to-cell satellites. Other than that, we don't really know why it is a new group. Because they could have just easily mentioned, to name these missions as, Group 7, whatever, right? Some other number. And because at the end of the day, 53-degree inclination, that is, again, what they used with Group 7 missions. So there's a lot to think about why it may be different. And then next week, out of Vandenberg, we have Group 9-1, which is also to 53-degree inclination. It's like, why are they using a new name, a new group, for something that they already called 7, right? Group 7. Or if they had direct-to-cell satellites, then it's Group 8, right? Just like we had the last launch out of here from Slick 40 was Group 8-5, which was carrying Starlink direct-to-cell satellites along with the Starlink V2 mini satellites. And it was a Group 8 mission. It's also to 53-degree inclination. So why is it that they suddenly moved to, naming missions Group 10 and Group 9? So that is the main question that we don't really have an answer for. But perhaps once they are launched, we'll discover why is it that they are different. one of the theories that I have is that perhaps they are being sent. So the insertion orbit that the Falcon 9 is sending these satellites doesn't really affect much where they're going to be ending up, right? Because they have their own thruster, a Hall effect thruster that can change their orbits, so they can eventually go wherever they want to. If it is a 350 kilometer facing orbit, which is the one that you use for checkouts, or if they go into operational orbit straight, which at least up until now it used to be around 530, 540 kilometers. But more recently, SpaceX filed for potentially having satellites lower, in lower orbits. I think it is around 340 or so kilometers, which, if you think about it, that is about 1.5 times lower altitude that they were using before. So that could lower the latency even further for Starlink. So they are interested in that kind of lower altitude precisely because that could alleviate the whole latency stuff when you transmit, because you're closer to Earth, right? You therefore have less latency on your system. So that's one of the theories that I have, that potentially maybe that's where these are going, that eventually once they start racing their orbits, maybe they are just going to a very low orbit compared to the other shells, and perhaps the same thing is going to happen with Group 9 from Vandenberg. The other option that I have in mind, which could still be possible, is that, this is the launches that we have had with Group 5, 6, 7, and 8. They all were so far going to Starlink Generation 2, the second generation constellation of a Starlink. But there's still a first generation constellation of a Starlink, excuse me. So there could be a possibility, and SpaceX actually filed for this possibility, that they could just refill with new satellites those older that older constellation with V2 mini satellites. In which way, they deorbit older satellites and they refresh them with new ones. Guess what? We are 5 years already from the start of that first constellation, which means they have already hit their sort of maximum span of lifetime, right? So if you think about it, there could be a chance that these missions are also about replenishing the first generation constellation. That's the two leading theories that I have, that it's maybe a lower operational orbit, or maybe they are being, replenished those older orbits. So yeah, that's my long-winded explanation. You know me already, but I felt like, we probably didn't address those two theories earlier, and now we have a lot more people joining, right? So now it's the good moment for that.
That is true. It is a good moment for that. It's also a good moment to remind people of the booster B1069. Max, do you happen to
Yep.
know a little bit about B1069 and what we have downrange for this one?
Well, B1069 is interesting because on top of it having a rather nice name, this booster had a pretty rough start to its life back with CRS-23 back in December of 2021. It had a rather rough landing. Was it just read the instructions, Alex? Or was it, of course, I Still Love You?
I actually have to look it up. Hang on. I
think-
think it might have been, of course, I Still Love You, but I'll quickly look it up. Hang on.
Well, either way, it had a rough landing on one of the drone ships that...
it was just read the instructions.
Just read the instructions, okay. So it had a rather
For
rough
CRS
landing...
24.
24, excuse me. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
December 21st, 2021.
Yep. Had a rather rough landing and crushed a few of the Merlins that, of course, power the booster into the first stage of flight. It was initially thought that the damage may have gone deeper than just the nozzles, and that it may have damaged the thrust puck and other internals of the booster itself structurally, and we all thought this booster was headed to the scrapyard, but obviously that is not the case, as this booster is about to embark on its 16th flight, which is pretty remarkable now, and it's so weird to say that a booster flying for a 16th time now is kind of ho-hum. I mean, it's because we now I think have, let's see, is it 3 or 4 boosters at or above 20 flights? I think it's 3. It's either 3 or 4 boosters. I think 2 or 3
4
here, 1
boosters.
advanced. 4 boosters.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Yeah, the one that launched the previous mission, that 8-5 mission, that was 67. That was the 4th booster to reach 20 flights. Continue.
awesome.
Sorry.
No, you're good. And then supporting tonight's mission are the recovery ships. Of course, the drone ship of a Shortfall of Gravitas stationed just over 600 kilometers northeast for once. I have to get used to saying that now because we've been saying southeast for the better part of over a year now. So headed back northeast again, same with the Group 8 shell, and even further downrange, helping out recover. The fairing for tonight's mission is Bob. So, it's so interesting and strange watching a Starlink fly northeast again, because the last time we saw that was back in 2022, which seems like eons ago with the amount of progress that we've seen here, both from SpaceX and everyone else flying from here and elsewhere, of course. But we are back to business as usual with Falcon 9 after the previous day's festivities.
Yeah,
Talking while muted, Sawyer?
probably.
I flipped the switch. It didn't go. There we go. Anyway, yes. So
You gotta
recently
say
we had
see
Star.
towards.
We've had Starliner. We've had Starship. Now we have Starlink. But I have to say, with the return of the Falcon 9 comes the return of the best vent, the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent, which we should
Right
be
on cue.
seeing right on
There you
time.
go.
There it is.
That's the vent.
Yep. Max, what is the vent?
So essentially, what SpaceX is doing right now is they have wrapped up liquid oxygen, RP1 loading on the first stage of Falcon 9, and they are cooling down
Stage.
the. Sorry. Oh, on
You
stage
said
2,
first
excuse me.
stage.
RP1 on stage 2. Forgive me. Yeah. So
There you go.
essentially, what SpaceX is doing now is chilling down the propellant lines in the strongback in preparation for stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. The last thing you want to do is flow a super cold cryogenic fluid through propellant lines that are either at or above room or ambient temperature, as that could lead to propellant flashing from a liquid to a gas very suddenly and expanding and causing a whole bunch of issues internally, and that would lead to a bad day for a lot of people. So right now they are essentially flowing liquid nitrogen into the lines and of course venting it out, and that is what you are seeing right now, getting those propellant lines down to the temperatures needed to flow liquid oxygen through them. That should wrap up in about, I want to say, 2.5 minutes from now.
Yeah. Someone asked if it's actually a vent, if it's just purging. I mean, technically it is a vent because it's like releasing gaseous oxygen. So that is precisely. I mean, it's fair to call it a vent because
It
you're
is-
sort of releasing that pressure from the gaseous oxygen.
It is quite eventful, that's for sure.
I knew you were gonna do a pun, Sawyer.
Of course, I had to. It's been a little bit here. I do want to thank Falcon's Maze, who during our DJ delay session there gifted 5 Red Team memberships to the community. So, thank you very much for that. Kyle has a question here saying, what is the reasoning for them launching now back to the northeast? Is it weather related? Alex?
Yeah, we've been talking about that earlier before, right? Where it's like maybe it has to do with the weather, but then again, they have been launching to the southeast for like 2 years almost, more than a year and a half. So maybe it's not everything down to the weather, right? Maybe it is more about the a mix of things, maybe weather, but also this is a higher inclination orbit than Group 6 missions. Group 6 missions went to 43-degree inclination. Oh, sorry, my calculator just dropped to the ground. But I swear I'm not using it, by the way. It probably seems like I'm always using my calculator, but I'm not. So yeah, this is like a higher orbit inclination, which means it eats up a lot more of the performance from Falcon 9. And so if you can imagine it going southeast, you kind of have to avoid the Bahamas unless you actually land in the Bahamas. That's a whole other history there, with the Exuma landings and everything. So the the thing is, if you don't land in the middle of the Bahamas to go into a 53-degree inclination orbit, you're gonna have to do a very big dogleg around Bahamas, right? So that's perhaps what's going on here. And also, if you do choose to go to the middle of the Bahamas, then you have to take into account the rapid cadence that they're getting here, where maybe the trip back for the drone ship is not the most ideal, because you need to go around the islands. Whereas if, for the previous Group 6 missions, when they were doing drone ship landings off the coast of Bahamas, they didn't need to go around, although sometimes they did, just because, they had the time to do that. But if you just want to go straight from the landing location, you really don't want to go around any islands. And the location that they had for those Group 6 landings was very ideal for that, and without really having to do a big dog leg. So it's probably a combination of multiple things here at play, and maybe even things that we're not aware of and that only SpaceX has under consideration. So that's my take. Again, there's no really straight answer about that, unfortunately. But I gave you some possibilities. Maybe think about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely a lot to think about there for sure. It's just it is going to take some getting used to, as Max was mentioning, especially when you're used to photography and where to set up your cameras. It's like, okay, it's going southeast, the trajectory, you've seen it. Now it's like, oh wait, I got to remember how I did this years ago, getting it back to the northeasterly trajectory. And kind of like we were mentioning earlier, you have the ISS at the 51.6 degree inclination. And this is a 53.1 degree inclination that this launches to. So they are very close to each other. So it's very similar in terms of that northeasterly trajectory. And that is a reminder then. So if you have seen any of the launches to the ISS, if you've stepped outside your house and you've been able to see a launch to the space station, well, then there's probably a good chance that you will be able to see the launch tonight, of course, weather, clouds, and all of those conditions pending. So fingers crossed that hopefully some of you in the community will get to see it all the way up along the eastern seaboard, if not already in Florida. Let's see here. Patrick Leone with a follow-up to the earlier question, while we're kind of talking about the inclination and things like that. Patrick asking, does the Earth's rotation and inclination have any effect on rocket launches? And I believe the answer, Alex, to that is they do get a little mini yeet by launching east.
Yeah, and that sometimes leads to misconceptions, I guess, which is funny because we're sort of working on videos about that. Yeah, so we could probably add this. But there's always the misconception that, oh, you really need to get close to the equator because that's when you get the most performance out of your rocket. It's like, yes, but that's only if you launch to an equatorial or at least not a high inclination orbit. If you think about going to a polar orbit from the equator, you have already a component, a velocity, right, along the equator in that direction. Like, so, if you're looking north, south, east, west, you're having a velocity to the east already that you have to cancel if you want to go to a polar orbit. So the best location to actually launch into a polar orbit will be as close to the poles as possible, right? Because you will have an initial velocity that will be very, very small that you don't have to cancel. So this is why launching to different inclinations, as I was saying before, Group 6 missions went to a 43-degree inclination orbit. Going to a higher inclination means that the rocket needs to work against its sort of eastwardly direction, initial velocity, because it's rotating in that way along with the Earth at the beginning. So because of that, it needs to fight against that velocity, and the higher inclination that you get, the more performance that you need to spend on that, and therefore that's sort of a big problem that you have there for your rocket. Which is why normally when you see these sort of stats for the performance of a rocket, normally they tend to give like lowest inclination low Earth orbit, and then like sun synchronous orbit. Sun synchronous is normally like 97 degrees or something like that, which is not only polar but also slightly retrograde. So eventually you kind of need to fight even more against the rotation of the Earth. So yeah, and so they have different performances, and it's normally like lower performance for sun synchronous orbit. So yeah, it does affect the rocket launches, the performance of the rocket, depending on where you want to go. Of course, if you want to go to geostationary orbit, an equatorial location is your best location to go to that orbit, and you don't need to fight. It actually helps you, and you get the best performance out of your rocket compared to, like say if you're in Kourou in French Guiana, like Ariane 6, which is coming up soon, right? Then you're going to get the most boost out of the Earth's rotation because you're going to be very, very close to the equator. If you launch that rocket from Cape Canaveral, though, you will have a lot less performance on your rocket. You could not launch as much mass as you could if you were to launch it from Kourou. So that's sort of the thing here as well. Sometimes things do play in your favor, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say 3 words that I know people are. It's going to set off some reactions in chat here. Southern Polar Corridor.
Polar corridor. There you go.
Priorities.
I hope Jack is not listening and being very angry about that.
Oh, I hope he is. I know earlier he was jamming out to Freebird and Never Gonna Give You Up, so I'm not quite sure he is. But if he is, you're welcome, Jack.
Yeah, I hope we're not giving him up or whatever.
Oh boy. Now we are coming up here on the T-minus 10-minute mark. Max, what can we expect in the final 10 minutes of the count here? Hopefully we still have Max's connection from the field there.
If not, I can fill in, but let's see if Max is around. Okay, I'll do it
Alex, why
then.
don't you take it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it. He's not going to be available. So we are right now under 10 minutes away for the launch. We are approaching the final few stages of propellant load onto the rocket. The next thing, as you can see there on the timeline, the next thing will be the engine chill will start on the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage. That'll be very similar to the, to what Max explained about the T-minus 20-minute vent on the Stromback. Just that the difference is that instead of being through the Stromback, it's going to be through the liquid oxygen side of the Merlin engines. Because, in 9 minutes, they're going to be flowing a lot of liquid oxygen through. So you need to condition that, those turbopumps and everything before you flow all of that liquid oxygen. So they flow a little bit of that liquid oxygen through, and then they condition those 9 engines. After that, we're going to get the end of RP1 load on the first stage. The Stromback will be getting ready for retraction, opening the cradle arms at the top. Then it'll retract as well. Then liquid oxygen load will complete on the first and second stages. Falcon 9 will be fully loaded, getting ready for launch. All of the other stuff like FTS will be armed and everything. T-minus 1 minute, as you see there, Falcon 9 will enter startup. That's when the ground computers will hand over control to the onboard computers on Falcon 9 to take the control of the count. Also, the tanks will pressurize for flight, and hopefully, that's also when all of the internal system vehicle checks occur. So hopefully that's when will say, yeah, we're good to go, and the flight director will say, go for launch and all of that. So just 8 minutes to launch. Hopefully we get a really nice launch today.
That's what we're hoping for. And Max, I know the weather was quite a concern. How's it looking now as we hit under T-minus 8 minutes?
I mean, other than some clouds hanging around afterwards, I'm seeing lots of stars in the sky and just a slight breeze out of the north. So conditions are looking ideal for a liftoff, hopefully in about 7.5 minutes time. So things are looking much better, especially from our perspective here at the Kennedy Space Center, and hopefully it is for you too, whether you are watching with us online or north or south of Cape Canaveral.
That is the hope. And Max, if you could see those stars, we'll let you get ready to take some photos and video of it and send you off and talk to you after the launch.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'll see you on the other side.
Sounds good. We are now at T-minus 7 minutes. That engine chill, as Alex was kind of just talking about there, should be underway on the 9 Merlin 1D engines as we continue to count down to launch of Starlink 10-1. Again, this aboard booster B1069 on its 16th flight with a Shortfall of Gravitas, the drone ship located about 610 kilometers to the northeast of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where it is launching from. Here's a question from Roka saying, how do we expect Starlink launch cadence to change when Starship starts eating the sats? Do you think that'll make an impact, and do you think we'll still see Starship Starlink launches?
Oh yeah, I think for a moment we're gonna see, double deployment, so to speak. Like we'll see Falcon 9 and Starship going along. As I was mentioning, if you're new to the stream, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be doing the same sort of thing because we are 6 minutes away for the launch. But I had a whole conversation before about how there's a good chance that we're gonna see Falcon 9 still launching and ramping up cadence, even when Starship is gonna be around. Precisely because it's launching a lot of capacity for Starlink and whatnot, and it will be very silly if you suddenly stop launching that capacity without, having a great cadence on Starship. So, but once that happens, once Starship actually goes to cadence, a really high cadence, and then it takes over from Falcon 9, then I can see that, keep going and getting all the way till the end of the of the constellation, essentially. So yeah. I think the launch cadence will obviously change for Falcon 9, and will also change for Starship, because there's gonna be a lot of Starlink launches, not just on Falcon 9 but also on Starship. That's sort of the future.
More satellites, more better, I guess, in
More
terms
better.
of
Yeah.
being able to launch them. Yeah, I know there's some people that aren't as much of a fan of more satellites, but in this case, for the people that use Starlink, it is super helpful. Let's see here. Bacon Powered Tesla asking for Danger Flap merch. I mean, we have this we have the Ocean Club merch. That's pretty cool now. The for the successful splashdown at least, but that would be kind of cool to have Danger Flap. And I also do like that name, Danger Flap. We are now about 4 minutes and 20 seconds away from the liftoff of this Starlink 10-1 mission. Excuse me there. So
It's
as we
kind of
get
complicated now to say Group 10, right?
it's so strange because again we went from Group 6 to Group 8 to Group 10, and coming up there's from Vandenberg Space Force Base is Group 9. So it does
Yeah.
take a little bit of double checking the screen to make sure that it's the correct Starlink shell and number and everything. With 22 V2 mini satellites on board, as we mentioned, Shortfall of Gravitas ready to support downrange. We had some weather issues earlier. It appears to be that those have cleared up as they continue the countdown now. 3.5 minutes. We're getting into the real nitty gritty here as the strongback should now be retracted. That strongback is pretty important.
Yeah.
Right, Alex?
Yeah, so that Stromberg obviously supports the rocket from rollout to vertical, and then but once once the rocket is partially loaded at the very least at this point, it's about to finish propellant load though. Once it's in that position, then they can retract a little bit that Stromberg, and then at liftoff it retracts all the way. That Stromberg supplies a lot of things. Purchase the interstage. It provides fluids and power to the second stage, and it also purchases and conditions essentially the inside of the fairing. Oh, thanks. So there you go. Stage 1 LOX load is complete. First stage is fully loaded right now. Second stage is about to wrap up as well on that liquid oxygen load. But as I was saying, it also conditions the fairing as well. When there's sensitive payloads and things like that, they want to have a nice clean environment and atmosphere, very dry atmosphere as well. They usually flow nitrogen through it so that all of the humidity, especially the Florida humidity, goes out and doesn't affect the satellite. So It's a very important piece of equipment, and that's why they retracted, a throwback maneuver at liftoff so that it doesn't get damaged, and then they can use it again very quickly.
Right. I mean, this launch coming just barely over 3 days from the last launch from this pad, which was another Starlink flight to the northeast. So the turnaround time's
Stage 2
very
launch load is
rapid now.
complete.
And there is confirmation
you
stage
go.
2 locks load complete. We will see one more line purge of the same spot where we saw the T-minus 20-minute vent, as we call it. There it is. That is purging any remaining liquid oxygen from that line, because liquid oxygen, well, oxygen in general, of course, when you put flame nearby it, it is indeed quite flammable potentially. So if you have 9 Merlin 1D engines firing near it, you don't want to risk
Gas
causing
launch
a fire.
closeouts have started.
Yeah, that's the call out that they are now closing out. This is very similar to the T-minus 40-second mark on the Starship countdown, where they vent out all of the lines, and they call it the vent down sequence for Starship.
T-minus
But
1
yeah,
minute.
it's
We should
very
be getting
similar.
confirmation momentarily. Falcon 9 is in startup, meaning the onboard computers have taken control of the count, and that the tanks will be pressurized to their final flight pressures.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there is that
Yeah,
confirmation.
there you go.
So the next thing we will listen for, hopefully, is the go for launch from the launch director.
Launch director, go for launch.
And there it is. Launch director, go for launch. We are now less than 30 seconds away from the scheduled liftoff here. About 20 seconds. Again, once it lifts off, we will be quiet and let you enjoy the beautiful launch sounds of Falcon 9 as we get into the final 10 seconds of the count here. Keep an eye out at the base of the rocket. You'll see a green flash, potentially. That is the T-Tab that helps ignite the
There's the
Merlin
water.
engines. There is the Rainbirds. There is the ignition. And liftoff of Starlink 10-1. Go, Internet Satellites V2. Go. Normally I'd already be talking by now, but boy, the sound continuing to travel with that particular launch. Amazing sound of that crackle
And this
there.
tracking, like, is this Max? Maybe our operator, like, wow.
Yeah.
The way
this is
that he
definitely
tracked,
hand-tracked.
yeah. Well, Max, that was gorgeous. Like the way he tracked it through the clouds and everything. Wow, I
Yep.
love that.
Max continuing to track it as we come up on 3 major milestones about to happen in rapid succession. Nico, main engine cutoff, followed by first and second stage separation, and then we should have SES1, second engine start 1, which would be ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine.
Let's see if we
Continuing
can
to
see that
proceed
Miko.
through the clouds there towards the northeast. That's
Oh,
Miko.
there you go.
We'll have separation, and we'll keep an eye out for that engine ignition on that second stage. And then, of course, SpaceX, with a slight delay on their visual, so we kind of get a mini replay of it. There it is. There's confirmation again of that stage separation.
Back ignition.
and ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine as you see on the right side of your screen, a regular sized nozzle, and on the left side of the screen through the plasma you can see the grid fins unfolding as the booster gets ready to land on a shortfall of gravitas, about 600 kilometers downrange.
Bearing separation
On the right
confirmed.
side of your screen there go the payload fairing halves. Bob is the recovery ship that is downrange to help recover those and bring them back to be flown again.
Well, you know, now that this is launching, I'm kind of waiting now for somebody from Starlink, maybe on social media, saying, "We've done this on this mission," so that we know what else is Group 10.
Right,
But
on the
that's the tracking
previous...
of the impact engine, right?
That is absolutely second stage tracking
Vehicles
continuing,
are
yes.
nominal trajectory.
Both vehicles nominal trajectory,
Good.
meaning they're flying exactly as they're supposed to. And of the last one, we had the fairing halves that had the record turnaround time, if I recall, right?
Oh, you mean the fairing halves, right? Yeah, that happened on the last launch. They said, "Oh, it's the fastest turnaround for a fairing half." That was interesting that they talked about fairing recovery and reuse and everything. They don't normally do that. Kind of wish they did it more often because we track the boosters and we know their serial numbers and everything. Of course, the fairings most likely do have their own serial number and everything, but we don't get to know those.
Right, and there's an active and a passive side as well, one that has separation mechanism, the other one kind of just falls away along with it. So
Yeah.
those are then have thrusters that help steer it, they have parachutes that help slow it down, and as mentioned, Bob downrange to scoop them up and bring them back to Port Canaveral to be flown again. We'll see if they give us any exciting details about these particular ones. In the meantime, though, not seeing anything crazy is exciting in its own way at this point as we continue to see both vehicles performing, it looks like, as they should. Altitude decreasing as expected on the left side of your screen for stage 1, the speed increasing, which is why we have the entry burn that should be coming up within less than a minute. Alex, can you talk a little bit about the significance of the entry burn and how it works?
Yeah, so right now, obviously, the booster is about to enter the thickest parts of the atmosphere. And so it's gonna get very toasty if it doesn't do a re-entry burn. One of the things with the re-entry burn is that it not only decelerates the booster and brings it to a more normal speed, but also, as you like to say sometimes, it fights fire with fire, right? Where the exhaust of the engines kind of creates this bow shock as the booster re-enters the atmosphere and pushes away the heat of the re-entry. Even though the engines,
Stage
even
1
though
entry
the
burn
engines
startup.
are very hot, there you go. That's the entry burn call out. So now
Stage
it
1
ignites one
STS
engine, and then it transitions to 3. There you go. That's 3. And these engines just try to push that air away from the booster so that it doesn't really get hurt, by the aerodynamic forces and the re-entry heating. Even though, the engine itself, it's very hot.
Entry burn
Um,
shut down.
but yeah, that's
There
the
we
call out. Entry burn shutdown. And now we should see some of the plasma, right, Sawyer?
Yeah, now we'll see a lot more of the plasma, especially through those grid fins there as it gets into that thicker part of the atmosphere. Now,
Both vehicles are
only
nominal
30 kilometers, 30 kilometers above the deck. Both vehicles on nominal trajectories, so flying where they're expected to be at this moment. Now, in the bottom left, you can see that speed really dropping quickly. So the next thing that we will see will be the landing burn, when we see one more firing of the Merlins on the left side of your screen that will hopefully lead to a soft touchdown on a shortfall of gravitas, again, which is about 600 kilometers northeast of where that booster started just 7.5 minutes ago. Once that's on the
Yep.
deck, hopefully
Stage
shortly
1
after that, we
transonic.
will see Seco 1, second
Good.
engine cutoff 1. And that would be
Yeah.
the second stage engine shutdown. And yes, that was transonic. So the booster going below the speed of sound.
Normally the landing
kilometers.
burn. Yeah, normally
An
the
hour.
landing burn is much more visible first on the speed because it drops and then you see it on the video.
Right, but
Stage
keep
one
an eye
going
out because
for.
there should be ignition.
There you go.
Stage 2 terminal
There
guidance.
it is. You'll see those grid fins wiggling as they help steer.
Oh, can you hear that?
I hear, yes, drone ship, Mike.
Landing leg deployed.
And touchdown! Booster 1069 with
Stage one landing
another
confirmed.
successful landing, this time on a shortfall of gravitas. It's
Stage 2
16th launch
FTSSA.
and 16th landing.
And back
Stage 2
shutdown.
there you can see. We should have shutdown, Seco 1. And there we go. 27,200 kilometers up. Or in speed, excuse me. 163 kilometers up, it looked like. And we are there.
Yep, nominal orbit.
Max, how was that from where you're at?
I forgot how good this perspective was for northeast trajectories, man. Having an almost side-down profile of Falcon 9 ascending at about 53 degrees is beautiful, especially at night where the brightness of the expanding exhaust, the light comes up and refracts off of the bottom of the fairings and gives you kind of a silhouette of Falcon 9 as it goes up. Beautiful as always, and of course, with the air being as thick and sticky as it is here tonight, it's gotten more humid since we last talked to y'all earlier. Just helped that just helps carry the sound that much more. And the VAB, of course, was squealing like crazy as it always does from Slick 40. But beautiful watching it ascend through the clouds. But lost stage 2 pretty quickly because of said cloud cover. But I actually saw the landing bird from here. It was about halfway in between pad 39A and 39B. I will try to get that in next time we have a northeast flight at night. But otherwise, that was absolutely stunning as always.
Again, we're having to relearn where things are for these particular flights as they go northeast again. Because A, it's been a while, and B, sometimes there are slight trajectory changes. So we will
Yeah,
try and capture
absolutely.
those for you next time. But I mean, the launch capture and the sound, unbelievable this time, Max. Amazing job.
And the fact that they have audio from the drone ships now is amazing. I always forget about that.
Well, drone ship singular. I
Correct.
think it's
Yes,
only on the
correct.
Shortfall of Gravitas.
You are correct.
Because I think the last mission was just read the instructions. I tried to listening and there was no audio. It looks like they only have it on a Shortfall of Gravitas. Maybe they'll retrofit just read the instructions for that. Jamie, if you're watching, get on with that, please.
And at least they'll know how to install it. All they have to do is just read the instructions.
Oh, jeez.
Correct. Yeah.
Hang tight. We have replays coming, including Max's amazing track. That was phenomenal. Again, we heard that VAB squeal too. The sound was absolutely spectacular on that. The VAB squeal, in case you're unaware, is that kind of high-pitched whining noise that is the same frequency of the Merlin 1D engines that kind of vibrate the panels of the vehicle assembly building, creating that noise. You typically only hear it when it's basically dead on to those panels, which is when it launches from either Slick 40, as we saw tonight, or landings at LZ 1 and 2. Now, before we continue into the replays and everything, I do want to make a quick mention because I know that we've seen the comments on it, and in case you are unaware, Apollo 8 astronaut William Bill Anders did pass away as the result of an aircraft accident today. Senator Bill Nelson and current NASA administrator saying in 1968, during Apollo 8, Bill Anders offered to humanity among the deepest of gifts an astronaut can give. He traveled to the threshold of the moon and helped all of us see something else, ourselves. He embodied the lessons and the purpose of exploration. We will miss him. Bill, in case you're unaware, is the one who took the famous Earthrise photo that you see there on your screen. So, rest in peace, Bill. Condolences to his family and friends. I do want to just make sure that we acknowledge that. Right now, we continue to look at what is traditionally DOS's favorite view with the empty launch pad there, and working on pulling those launch replays for you. In the meantime, I do want to take just a moment here and thank a few people. Coco Cats, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. And Stephen Frazier, thank you for the support, saying go Starlink, and go Starlink indeed. And I also have a special message from a Daniel B in the back channel here to give Papa some street cred and tell his granddaughter Bella hi from the NSF crew. So, Bella, your grandpa's pretty darn cool and says hi.
He's okay.
He's not bad, I'll say that. We kid. Oh boy.
You
All
know,
right.
there's something funny about today's mission because I almost got spooked, or even for a moment I kind of doubted my own spreadsheets because SpaceX said on X this was the 300th landing of a Falcon 9, but I have on my own spreadsheet that this was the 317th landing of a Falcon 9 booster, and I was like, what are they saying? 300th landing of a Falcon 9? What are they talking about? And of course, I noticed that it was Falcon 9 landing. And then I remembered that there's been 9 Falcon Heavy launches, which I count because it's, Falcon boosters landing. After all, there's still the, Merlin engines, grid fins, and whatnot. It's essentially the same systems in use for the landing of those boosters. There's been 9 Falcon Heavy missions. Of those, one of them, they expended all of the boosters. 3 of them, they attempted... So, and the other 8, they landed all of the side boosters. And on one of them, they also landed the center core. Unfortunately, they lost it on the way back, but they landed it. So it counts. So that means 17 more boosters landings, right? So, my spreadsheet says 317. SpaceX says 300, but that's what it means.
Math is
And I stole
difficult, but
enough
watching
for
replays
you
is
to
great.
show. Exactly. I stole enough, at least, for us to be able to show the replays.
Yes, here we go. This is the view from one of our cameras there at the KSC press site. Again, this launch going to the northeast, so some of the views are going to be a little bit different than we're used to seeing, which is always kind of cool. And just the way that it lights up the night sky. To think that there was a lightning warning just a short time ago, and now the beautiful sky from night to day as Falcon 9 takes off. Doesn't get
That's so
old.
cool.
Also of note, on the right side of your screen, the strong back is now going back into the vertical position.
Getting ready for the next launch, June 11th at 5:30 p.m. That's when the next launch, Starlink 10-2, out from Slick 40 is taking place. We'll see you all there. But in the meantime, these replays are, I don't know, like when you see that Falcon 9 going up in the night sky, and it looks like a star kind of, going up and making the night day, essentially.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And also, 4 days? Man, that's such a long time for SpaceX.
Yeah, hang on. Let
Keeping
me
everyone
see.
busy.
Yeah, 3.8 days, almost 4 days turnaround. Yes.
Yeah, we joke that is still absolutely impressive, the launch cadence. Reminder, the goal 148 or 144 now. Which one is it still this year?
Well, it is 144, but they also, John Edwards said, well, but we still need to catch up on the 4 that we didn't do, because they did 96 and their target in 2023, and their target was 100. So it's like, yeah, we're still doing those 4, of course. So they're doing 148 total. 144 for this year target, right? Plus the 4 that they didn't do last year.
Yeah, and this Max's amazing replay, we get to watch it in full and hopefully listen to that launch audio again one more time, because that was some amazing crackle from Maxwell out there.
Yeah, this track was a little bit tricky because I was getting bit all around trying to stay not not dying over here.
Oh, yep, Florida mosquitoes are out. But so are the Falcons. That crackle was absolutely spectacular. Max, I know, as you mentioned, you're getting eaten alive out there. I'm sure you still are, so we'll let you head on in. Max, thank you very much for rolling out and sticking out through all of the push T-zeros to track for us.
Hey, it's a pleasure as always, everybody. Despite the conditions out here, sometimes it never gets old being able to come out here and share these launch experiences with all y'all. So, thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you in just under 4 days' time, hopefully.
Yes, for that launch at least, for the next Starlink one here, or the next Falcon 9 launch at least from the Cape. And then the person whose voice I'm amazed is still working after all of the coverage with Starship yesterday, Flame Trench, and now this today, Alex. You don't have to say too much. I know your voice has been working overtime, but thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and I always have fun on these live streams, and hopefully see you on the next one. By the way, what is our next live stream, Sawyer? If you can leak it.
I'm not being told I can't yet, so we will leak it. As mentioned, in the Flame Trench, we saw Jack and Dee out on the road. They were on the road to Spaceport America, where we have Virgin Galactic set to fly their final flight of Unity. So keep an eye out, as we will do our best to be live with tracking of that mission from our fantastic cameras and our fantastic team over there. So hopefully you'll join us tomorrow morning for that. And then I have to thank Jay Keegan, who's been behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and being your actual DJ through all of this. So as much as I like to take credit, he's the one responsible for your music listening pleasure during our delay tonight. And a special shout out as well to Dr. Holly, who is currently in Florida. I know, Max, Dr. Holly has something special for you that the rest of your Cape team totally hasn't been scheming about for a couple months now.
She does?
Maybe. And this is her view of the Starlink 10-1 launch from Tampa. So, shout out to Dr. Holly there as well. I have been your host, Sawyer Rosenstein. Thank you everyone for watching and sticking with us. And we will see you for the next one.
And here we go.
We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, planet.
Payload down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Say again, FD off. It's orange!
45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Décollage! What is it? Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.